Which brings us, of course, to York Minster. And even against the grey skies, I think you'd agree it looks suitably magnificent. It is, I would say it's the seventh wonder of the world, but it feels, to us at least here in England, that this cathedral here, even amongst many wonderful cathedrals, and Lincoln where we were the other night, absolutely fabulous. But there's something about York Minster. There is something about the scale, the shape, the artistry, the execution of how well it's been done. But also we're all suckers for Gothic. We love the Gothic style. And so contrary, Sandy's absolutely right, that we are almost preconditioned to just melt and go weak at the knees at the sight of kind of true Gothic. And this is one of the finest examples anywhere in the world of kind of the high Gothic style. It's a bit of what we call the perpendicular. I cried, says Barbara, when she saw it. I can understand. Because the thing is, Barbara, if anybody else hasn't been here, is to stand underneath this, and we're going to get closer, I'm going to give you this sense, is it's almost impossible not to get a sense of vertigo, which is absolutely what they would have intended when they built this thing. The whole idea was to make you feel small. I will in just a moment, Nate. I'll just get to the spot you want to be for that kind of image. So I'm just going to turn us through 90 degrees. As you can see, we struggle to get it all in until we get reverse zoom. We're never going to get the picture that we want. So people write to Heygo about all sorts of things. Please ask for reverse zoom. In other words, wide angle, a 0.5, and they get a whole Minster in one shot. We'll just spin that around. So the whole point of this was to give you a sense of how tiny, how inconsequential you are, what you think. You know, these days we'll care desperately, don't we, on social media? You know, have your say. Well, nobody got to have their say in the medieval period. You did what you were told. You were told what to think, what to believe, what to do. And the church was a very, very authoritarian force. And so part of the cathedral buildings was about kind of ramming home this sense of look how small and inconsequential you are. And when you stand here, the closer we get, I'm going to give you a panning shot right up to the top in a moment, you'll get a sense, I'm sure, of what I mean. Even the doorway, let's kind of walk to this doorway, just kind of start thinking about human scale. Now yes, Justin, it was Catholic. Now I'm 6 foot, okay? Straight over 6 foot. And my head is not, if I turn around, I really want to give you a sense of size and scale on this. So if I just turn this around, you can see that the first bit of this door is above my head. So I'm over 6 foot, right? So just to give you a bit of kind of sense of scale, if I then kind of turn around and do that again, you'll see that the door, that's where my head was, that's above my head, that's less than half of the door. Okay, so let's move further back now. I'll tell you what, we'll go into landscape again for the portrait, rather, for a photo of the door. So beautiful illustrations around it. So now you can see that if you divide into, that's the side of me, isn't it, to that first line. So think how many more of me can get to the top of that arch. Yeah? And then, let's move this side and move to the great door. You can see suddenly we're about half as high again. So I'm going to spin that around. They're much shorter, absolutely, right? And then just let's keep going to get a sense of the size, the scale, and the degree to which it just utterly towers above anybody that stands anywhere kind of close to it. So I think you can see and understand why it was so difficult to challenge church authority. I'm not suggesting people should have done, but rather they felt that it was just so much bigger. It's still used to worship, absolutely. It's Anglican, yep. It's a place of Christian fellowship, absolutely, of course it is. It's not just a historical artifact, it is a place of Christian worship and fellowship. But it's also a wonderful example of artistry. And that's an artistry that's had to continue onwards because over time, of course, it weathers. So if I bring you up to this column over here, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. This limestone, magnesium limestone, which is quarried about 12 miles away from York. but Tadcaster. Um, this is what happens to wind exposure. So you can see how the surface is pitted, or it's dimpled. By contrast, obviously, some more recent kind of replacement stone. What about your methods community? Yes, they absolutely do. So you can see that's what the stone looks like. So consequently, absolutely all done by hand. You'll understand why from time to time they need to replace. But let me come up over here and give you a bit of a look at some of the carvings. These were done about 20 years ago to replace the original. But look at the skills that we still have here. Look at this for artistry, for detail. It is quite remarkable. So we've got the story of Adam and Eve going on here, carved into. And look at the friezes around it. It's not just the figures in the middle. The detail either side with the vines, with the leaves. It is an absolute kind of masterpiece. Was the restoration done by hand carving? Yeah, all hand carved. Every single bit is hand carved. All done by hammers and chisels. It's a human creativity driven, of course, by piety. So this was an expression of, back in the day, but still to a degree, this day, of people's piety. Taking extreme care, dedication, high levels of skill and artistry to essentially express their belief system, how serious they were about this endeavour. And that's equally true of the wood carvers here on the door as it is of the kind of stonemasons. So Natalie, it took forever, absolutely, it was spent over 250 years in the construction. And it was bit by bit. It wasn't a case of, all of it took that long. It was finished sort of in stages. And it was never finished. There is, what do they call the place in Barcelona? Sagrada Familia, right? They've got this thing, they call it the unfinished cathedral. Well, they all were, really, because there was never a fixed point when it was going to finish. And as we come round, you'll see in a moment, there are no filials on top of the central tower because they ran out of time, they ran out of money. So let's just open it. So eventually in 1472, they started building it in 1220. So some 252 years later, it was consecrated and opened. And it's been developing ever since. And the most recent development, of course, here is the statue of our late Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II. So you can see her there with the orb and the sceptre. So that was unveiled about 4 or 5 months ago, I think now, in York by new King Charles, Queen Consort Camilla. On a rainy day, we tried to kind of catch them, do that. We got rained off, but that's where she is. And it's important to know, by the way, that this, whilst it's called York Minster, I mean, everybody calls it that. So if we come over here and can show you their official logo on the interpretation board here. So even York Minster calls York Minster, but it is a nickname. It is actually the cathedral, the metropolitical cathedral of St. Peter at York. So St. Peter, of course, being St. Peter the Rock, the chief disciple of Jesus, the original vicar of Rome, the man for whom the Western Church was built on. That part was covered up with the Queen. Yes, it wouldn't have been opened then, Jan. Here is an illustration of what the minster actually looks like. So it is a cruciform in shape. In other words, it's shaped like a cross, orientated, of course, to the east, towards Jerusalem. But then you've got the chapter house stuck out. And this originally, I'll show you in a minute, the chapter house, was originally built as a standalone. Then, of course, they built, if you like, this adjoining kind of section onto it. So the chapter house somewhat, if you like, ruins the cruciform shape. But, actually, I'm going to put my glove back up. Otherwise, it is cruciform shape. And traditionally, churches pointing east of the altars towards Jerusalem.